The first step of drawing lines. First, wrap the thread around your hand. Hold the thread in your right hand, above the little finger of the left hand. Go around the top, and then you can wrap it around the top of the middle finger like this. The thread comes down on the index finger like this. This is how you go through the middle. Or after a circle around your little finger, you can pull it like this. Just make sure he's on the pinky. Just go around and come out on top of your index finger. Do whatever makes you feel better. This is a piece about taking the thread and winding the thread around the hand. When you wrap it around, it's your middle finger. And the thumb pinch. Forefinger pick. The index finger picks the thread no matter what. Pinch the line with your middle finger and thumb. After learning to string. Now let's talk about how it works. There are two common methods of needle lifting. One is a loop stitch. There's also a braid pin. Let's talk about the loop stitch first. Put the thread on your hand first. This is the end of the thread. Bury it in the middle finger and circle it. This is one of the loops of the loop needle. Pinch the intersection with your thumb. That's how it's usually written on the drawings. Loop up and then this fork is a short needle. Loop 6 short needles. It is common to loop 6 short needles. There are also 7 or 8 short needles. Just hook it according to the number of stitches on the drawing. Take out the crochet hook in the loop. We use the 2.0 thick end of the crochet. Through the coil on the finger. Then pull the wire out. Pull the coil around the back. And then the wire comes out through the inside of the coil. Then wind the thread and pull through the 2 coils on the needle. This is a short needle. After we hook the first short needle, make a marking clasp on the first stitch. The first stitch is to turn it sideways. The first V here is the thread above the crochet hook. Circle to heads disappear inside the next circle. This is the first stitch. And then the next short stitch. Thread it through the bottom coil. Then wind the wire. Pull the 2 coils on the needle. So that's the short needles. If you look at the side, there are 2 V's. Then go back and pull the thread. When you go through here and pull the thread, notice that the crochet is going from left to right. Bring it in like this and reel it out. Now 3 go through. Draw lines from left to right. Wrap the wire and hook it out. When counting stitches, note that we start from the first stitch that has the mark on it. It's just 5 short needles already. Hook another. After the 6 short stitches are hooked, remove the coil. Pull the first thread. Take these 6 short needles together. This is a loop stitch hook. After tightening, now it looks like a circle. And then we'll draw the first needle. It's the one we just put the mark on. Let's take the mark off. Crochet through the first stitch. This is how the hook is drawn. Go through all the coils on the needle at once. This is a drawing needle. Put it together end to end. I hooked it on the first turn. That's the one hook method of the loop needle. Once you're done, start the second loop. On the second hook, that is, after the tight pull. Make sure to hook it with a standing pin. This is how you wind the thread through a coil on the needle. This is a standing pin, also known as a braid needle. When you're done with the hook, pay attention to the second loop. Each time we pick up a new circle. On the first stitch, it's all through the same needle that was drawn. That's the same pin we used to hook the last frame. Let's go through the first of the second round. Draw it out and wind it. Let's talk about every time we go to draw lines. This coil on the needle should not be too loose. And don't pull it too tight. If you pull it really tight, there's resistance, it's not a good hook. If you pull it very loosely, it will lead to the finished product is very loose and not beautiful. Just loosen it a little bit. There's just a slight gap in the coil of the needle. Let the needle move freely. If you hook enough, you can control this one. Don't pull it too tight at first, and don't pull it too loosely. And then I hooked a short needle later. Put a marker on the first stitch. The second round is usually a short stitch and a stitch. It's 2 short needles in one eye. Let me give you a demonstration. I just take one off. Go through the same needle again. Then draw the line out. Wrap the wire around it. There are 2 short needles in one eye. This is a short stitch and a stitch. Let's hook the next stitch. A short needle in the same eye. And hook 1 or 2 short pins. That's 2 short needles plus a needle. Add a stitch in one circle so you have sharp stitches in the second circle. There are sharp little V's on the edge. A circle of 6 needles. I'm done with the needle I pulled. There are 2 small needles in the middle. You can't see very well here. It's the lead on the first lap and the stand. These 2 needles don't need to be hooked. Then take the mark off. Connect with the first pin of the second loop. Wind over. The V behind the coil on the needle is the second lead. Pull the draw pin down a little bit here. 4-finger pick. Make the coil on the needle smaller. Then pick the needle and push it forward. In this way, the drawing of the needle can be pulled very small. It is obviously smaller than other normal needles. This stitch doesn't use crochet, so make it smaller. Be sure to hook a standing pin after the hook and before the third loop. Then pull the standing pin down a little. These 2 small needles do not need to be hooked. It's the same as the first lap we just crossed. When you're done with the hook and you start the third loop, it's in the same needle that was drawn. Start the first stitch. Such a short needle hooked out. A V behind the coil on the needle. It's the first short stitch. Click the marker. And then just crochet the third round normally. The bottom of this flower pot is crocheted with a loop. It has a little circle in the middle here. It goes round and round. And the flowers are also crocheted in a loop here. Braid pin. Generally used for crocheting some long things. Like leaves, they're all crocheted with braids. Now let's talk about how to crochet a needle. The braid needle also starts by winding the thread around the hand. I'm not going to go around the middle finger here. Hook the braid needle. Use the thick end of the crochet hook. That's the 2.0 end. Make a circle on the line first. Then wrap the thread and hook it out of the loop and tie it in a slip knot. And then wrap the thread through this loop on the needle. This is a braid. And then 2 or 3. You can see from the side here that we have 3 V's. These are the 3 braids. And then the 4 or 5 braids hooked longer. And then you can hook something longer. Like this leaf with over 20 braids. And then you can hook it that long. If the leaves want to be shorter, just keep the braid needle short. I can hook shorter leaves. Here's a demonstration. It's not that long. There are 5 braids here. One side of the braid is like a braid. It's pretty obvious. And then the opposite is called the undershirt. There's a line here. The thread that connects the front braid. And then this is the front of the braid. When we hook it, we pick the front half of the braid first. This half of the needle. Hook braids usually have to be reversed twice. Here's his first braid. And then we go back to the second braid and start hooking. Come through the middle. Pick one side of the braid. Then draw the line out. This is a short needle. Mark the first short needle. This goes through a V. Next, check the second. Still halfway through it. To hook a short needle, braid pin. In the last stitch, usually 3 short stitches or more. At that time, it should be combined with the requirements of the drawing. I'm just going to tick 3 of them. After the hook, it is clear that there is a hole formed here. And then our next half, just in front of this hole. And then this hole goes through it. Pull it like this and look next to the hole. There's a line here that connects this half. Here in the middle of the braid. And then we come through. When you're threading this needle, you're going through a whole V. That's half the braid stitch and his undershirt. Came through with 2 wires. The back end of the thread should be placed on the needle after threading. We need to hide a line here. And then go and draw it out. Hook a short pin. And then the next short pin is a pull here. You can see there's a hole here. In front of the hole is a wire connecting the upper and lower parts. Then thread it right in front of the thread that connects the top and bottom. Look at the side as you go in. Here is one of its needles. And then there's another line back here. Cross it into strips at a time. And then wrap it around. When you hook this half, it's symmetric to the top half here. There's also a short needle here. After the hook, this is the end of the loop and the first needle to draw. Unlatch. Pull out connection. This will hook the braid on the first turn. Before starting the second loop, make sure you hook a standing pin first. After drawing, be careful to pull the drawing needle also tight. Draw the needle and pull it small. Here is a normal braid. This is the drawing needle very small. Then stand up and do the next lap. When you get up, lower the rise pin. Because the pole and the stand are not hooked. So pull them as small as possible. The finished product will look better. I've pulled the rise pin tight. Now we're ready for the second loop. The second loop is still in the thread of the drawing. Hook it like this. After the first stitch, make a mark on the top of the first stitch. Come back with a loop like this. It's easy to find this tight first stitch. Otherwise, it's easy for a newbie to find him. So don't forget to tick the button. This is normal to follow the stitch requirements to crochet. The next part is good. Next, Let's talk about the common stitch method of crochet. Let's talk about short needles first. Thread through a needle to bring out the thread. Come on, and then wind the thread through the two coils on the needle to make a short needle. Show me again. Thread out through the eye of the needle. Wind the thread through two coils on the needle. This is a short needle hook method. Then add a short stitch. To add a stitches to hook to short stitches inside a stitch. Go through the thread again and hook another. This is a short stitch and a stitch. And then we'll show you a medium needle. Medium and long needles need to be circled around the needle. Then go through the needle and bring the thread out. Now there are 3 coils on the needle. To wind the wire again, through 3 coils on the needle at once. This is a medium length needle. Show me again. Wind the thread through a stitch. Then bring the wire out. There are 3 coils. Wind the wire through all the coils on the needle at once. This is the medium length needle. Then add the medium and long needle as the short needle. 2 in the same eye. The 2 medium and long needles are winding. 1 stitch in each eye and then the thread is wound. 1 more in the same stitch. This is the addition of a medium length needle. Now let's talk about long needles. The long needle also goes around the needle, and then through a needle. Tape out. There are 3 coils on the needle. Here the thread is wound through the first 2 coils on the needle. And then there are 2 coils on the needle. Then wind the wire through the last 2 coils. So that's a long needle. It's a little longer than a medium needle. Let's demonstrate the winding again. Thread out through the eye of the needle. There are 3 coils on the needle. Wind the thread through the first 2 coils on the needle. Then wind the wire through the last 2 coils. So that's a long needle. Same long needle plus needle. Also, 2 long needles are hooked inside a stitch. It's a long needle plus a needle hook over. Then wrap the thread and hook it into the same eye. It's just a long needle and a needle. Now let's talk about the long needle. The long needle is made twice around the needle, also known as 2 rows of long needles. Wrap it twice and then thread it into the next stitch. Then draw the line out. Now there are 4 coils on the needle. We wound the thread through the first 2 coils on the needle. Then wind the wire through the first 2 coils. Then wind the wire through the last 2 coils. This is a long needle. It's a little longer than a long needle. Then double loop through the needle. Tape out. Pass the first 2 coils on the needle and turn. This is a long needle and long needle. It is also a needle with the long needles hooked inside the eye. I just hooked one. We hook another long needle into the same eye. He's just a long needle and a needle. This is the long needle. We just talked about adding needles. Now let's talk about reducing needles. Use a long needle to demonstrate. After 2 loops on the needle, press the 2 loops on the needle halfway through the next stitch. Then come back and do half of the next stitch. Thread the 2 needles together, and then wrap it around. You can combine 2 stitches into 1 stitch. This is the reduction of a long needle. Then the long needle is also reduced in a circle on the needle. Then pass halfway through the 2 needles. And then put the other half through. Strip the first 2 coils over the needle in turn to reduce the length of the needle. Then the mid-length needle is reduced, and also wound through it. The edge of 2 stitches. Come out again. The medium-length needle is threaded through 3 coils on the needle at once. The short needle doesn't have to be wound. Straight through the edge of the needle. This is how to crochet with various stitches. Here we talk about the positive and negative hooks of short pins. It's just winding a thread through a needle. On the way out, go from the left side of the line to the right side and wind it. It's a back tick. If you go from the right side of this line to the left, this is the hook. When we hook dolls, we often use the back hook. It's going from left to right. Take the line from left to right. So the finished product. The surface is a small square 1 by 1. Looking directly at the finished product is more obvious. Its grain can be seen horizontally and vertically. Such a stitch is a small square. This is the short cross needle that is reversed. Ordinary doll. We use a back hook stitch to do it. The surface being ticked out. It has a very clear pattern across it. The vertical lines are not very clear. This is a positive hook surface. This is the surface of the back hook. There is a little difference. How do you tell the inner half frame from the outer half frame? On the hook, we sometimes come across drawings that say blow or flow on them. This inner half stitch and outer half stitch. To the fabric. Let's look at a stitch. Such a V. It has two sides. One is near the inside. One is near the outside. Which side do we take? Which side do we make it the outside side? Like this little jar. This is the outside of it. So close to the outer half of the needle. So close to the outside half needle. It's the outer half of it. The half stitch near the inside is the inside half stitch. That's all it takes to tell the difference. Sometimes it's a piece. It doesn't distinguish between inside and out. Let's look at the front stitch. The half stitch near the front is its first half flow. And then the back close to the back half. It's the back half of the blow. That's all it takes to tell the difference.